I'm Catherine Sanders. I turned 32 last spring, and for most of my life I knew exactly where I stood in my family. Second place, behind my sister. Rachel is 3 years older and always the favorite. She got the warm smiles, the proud comments, the bigger slice of everything. She did everything right, at least in my parents' eyes. She married at 24, had 2 sons by 27, baked from scratch, sent early holiday cards, and looked the part of the perfect daughter. I stayed single, built a career, kept a calm little apartment across town where no one asked why I hadn't settled down. I had a 401k, a Roth IRA, and a plan to need help from no one. Apparently those don't count much if you're not wearing a ring. My parents, Linda and Jerry, never said the quiet part out loud, but their questions always pressed on the same bruise. Don't you want kids before time runs out? Your sister's boys are growing so fast. A shame they don't have cousins. Still in that same apartment, huh? I learned to smile, nod, and change the subject. For a while, I thought if I worked hard enough, they'd finally see me the way they see Rachel. But the truth settled slow, like dust in a room that hasn't been used in years. I wasn't the one they bragged about. I was the one expected to be fine, the one who didn't need much, the one who would manage. I didn't complain. I showed up on holidays, fixed the Wi-Fi, brought wine when they forgot birthdays, mine included, and then went home to my quiet. Keeping a gentle distance felt safer, like putting a fence between me and a storm. I didn't know that distance wouldn't be enough. I didn't know there would come a day when they would try to pull me in so tightly I could barely recognize my own life. Rachel's perfect picture didn't crack all at once. It chipped, then it split. Her husband David had been cheating for years. She found the messages by accident. Or maybe she finally stopped pretending she didn't see what was in front of her. She filed for divorce. No one blamed her, not even our parents. David disappeared. No child support, no apology, just gone. Rachel was left with 2 boys, Ethan and Jamie, and bills stacked like uneven bricks. Our parents offered lots of words, but their money was tied up in retirement accounts and memories they couldn't let go. Rachel moved into a cramped 2-bedroom apartment where the wallpaper peeled and the boys shared a bed for a while. I didn't hesitate. I paid her lawyer's retainer. I covered 6 months of rent when her part-time hours weren't enough. I watched the boys some weekends. I never bragged about it or asked for anything back. I love my nephews, and Rachel, once the star of every story, looked small and tired, like someone who hates needing help but has run out of choices. I thought maybe this would change how my parents saw things. Maybe now they'd see me clearly. But they didn't. Mom's calls became a running list of Rachel's pain, and then the same questions about whether I was seeing anyone. I kept helping, kept quiet, told myself that family meant showing up, even when staying invisible hurt. But when you're always the dependable one, people stop seeing your help as a gift. It becomes expected, like a bill due at the end of the month. Then came the call that sounded bright in a way that made my stomach tense. "Catherine, honey, we have such good news. Can you come by tonight?" Mom's voice was too smooth, like she'd rehearsed it. I hoped for something simple. Child support found, a small win, anything. "Is it about the boys? About David?" I asked. "No, even better," she said. "Come over. Your father's home. Rachel is here." I drove over after work, tired, but curious. They were already seated in the living room when I arrived, Dad in the recliner, Mom leaning forward, Rachel beside her with a stiff smile. A thick manila folder sat on the coffee table. "There she is," Dad said, standing to hug me and then handing me the folder. "Take a look." Inside were pages heavy with legal words and real estate logos. At the top, mortgage agreement. "What is this?" I asked. "It's for Rachel's new house," Mom beamed. "We used most of our savings and a bit of retirement for the down payment. Isn't it wonderful?" I blinked. "You bought a house?" "Yes," she said. 3 bedrooms, a yard. The boys need a stable place. That apartment isn't good enough. I looked at Rachel. She nodded weakly. "That's great," I said, because for the boys, it was. I started to hand the folder back. No, those are for you," Mom said, pushing it toward me again. For me? I asked. Dad cleared his throat. We've talked as a family and decided you'll take over the mortgage. You've been saving for years. You can handle the payments. Mom added softly. Rachel can't afford it. She's trying. The boys need this. The room went quiet, like the air had been sealed. You're asking me to pay for Rachel's house? I said. Rachel stared at her hands. After David left, I can't do this alone, she whispered. I glanced at the number on the document. It was huge. I already paid for her lawyer, I said quietly. And 6 months of rent? Mom reached for my hand. We raised you, sweetheart. We've done so much. Isn't it time to give back? My heart thudded. You bought a house knowing she couldn't afford it because you assumed I'd pay. Dad didn't deny it. You don't have a husband or children, he said, as if that settled it. I'm not doing this, I said. This isn't help. This is pressure. I left the folder on the table, stood up, and walked out before I started shouting. I thought they would cool down. I thought they would hear how wild it sounded, asking one daughter to fund the other's mortgage, and back off. I was wrong. The first call came that Saturday from my cousin Tiffany, someone I only see at funerals. I heard what you did, she said. No hello. I can't believe how cold you're being. Excuse me? I said. Rachel is a single mom. Those boys are your nephews. You're sitting on all that money and won't help? You don't know the full story, I said. I know enough. Family helps family. Rachel would do the same for you. I almost laughed. No, she wouldn't, I said. You're unbelievable, she snapped and hung up. Then came the texts and voicemails. Uncle Don, Jessica, a cousin I hadn't spoken to in years, a chorus of people I barely knew telling me I was selfish, that my parents raised me, that I don't have kids, so I should help the ones who exist. What I felt most wasn't anger. It was the weird certainty they had, as if my life, because I was single, was now open for collection. The worst was Aunt Pat, my mom's older sister. She called at dinner, voice sweet enough to cut. I'm trying to talk some sense into you, she said. You're not getting younger, Catherine. Who knows if you'll ever have children? At least this way, you'd be giving to your family's future. So, because I'm single, I said, I owe Rachel a house? Don't be dramatic, she said. They need help, and you can give it. That night, I blocked every number that had scolded me. If they couldn't respect my boundaries, they didn't deserve my time. And somewhere under the anger, I felt something I didn't want to name. This wasn't about the house. It had never been only about the house. 2 months went by. Silence took up space in my life in a way that felt like healing. I focused on work, walked in the mornings, cooked simple meals and ate them hot. Then an envelope came, thick, official-looking. I thought it was insurance paperwork. It wasn't. My parents were suing me. The names on the first page, Linda and Jerry Sanders. They filed a civil claim asking for $350,000 in reimbursement for raising me. I read it twice, then again. They listed food, clothes, school. They had a line for emotional support during adolescence, which made me laugh out loud. They even added old family trips from when I was 6. At the end, in simple language, funds to be used to complete the mortgage on the property bought for Rachel and her children. They didn't even bother to hide it. I hired the best lawyer I could find. Her name was Jennifer Madsen. Sharp glasses, steady voice, no flinching. I told her everything. She didn't blink. They have no legal right to your money, she said, turning the pages. Parents are required to support their minor children. There is no payback. So why sue me? I asked. Pressure, she said. They think you'll fold or they truly believe you owe them. Numb turned into anger, then into a heavy quiet. Over the next 3 weeks, I gathered proof. The $7,200 for Rachel's rent. The $5,500 check to her attorney. Bank transfers to my parents, $1,000 when they said they were short. Old texts asking for just a little help. Receipts I didn't remember keeping. Emails from accounts I forgot I had. Every line turned into a memory I hadn't asked for. On the day of the hearing, I wore gray slacks and a blouse my grandmother had bought me long ago. I brought what mattered. My grandparents, Walter and Maggie, came and sat beside me like a warm wall. Grandma squeezed my hand. "What they're doing isn't right," she whispered. "You know that." Across the aisle, my parents sat with Rachel between them. She kept her eyes down. I told myself to breathe. This wasn't about changing them. This was about protecting myself. The courtroom felt colder than summer should feel. Beige walls, thin carpet, plastic chairs that seemed designed for punishment. My parents sat with a row of aunts and uncles behind them, people who hadn't sent me a birthday card in years, now here to support the family. On my side were just my grandparents. Grandma wore a small brooch I remembered from childhood. When she touched my wrist, I almost cracked. Then the judge came in. He was in his 60s, gray at the temples, glasses low. He had the look of someone who doesn't hurry because he's heard every kind of story. Dad stood first. "Your Honor," he said, "we're not unreasonable. We spent our lives and our savings raising Catherine. We're only asking for part of that back to help our other daughter and her kids." The judge didn't react. "Specifically," he said, turning a page, "what did you pay toward her education after age 18? Mom and Dad looked at each other. Dad cleared his throat. "Well, at that time, Rachel had just gotten married. We were helping her and her husband get established." "So you did not cover the defendant's college," the judge said. "No," Mom said quickly. "But my mother, Catherine's grandmother, helped her, which is basically us, since she's my mother." Behind me, Grandma made a small sound that told the truth. Jennifer stood calm and careful. "Your Honor, we have records showing Ms. Sanders has been financially independent since 18. In fact, she has repeatedly supported both her sister and her parents." She handed over a file, bank transfers, receipts, emails. "This includes $7,200 in rent for her sister, $5,500 for her sister's lawyer, and multiple deposits to her parents during claimed hardship periods." The judge looked through the stack, then up. "So the defendant was not receiving support from you," he said to my parents. "She was giving it." "That money isn't relevant," Mom said. "We're talking about the cost of raising her, food, shelter, guidance." "Why?" the judge asked. "Do you need $350,000 now?" Mom looked at Rachel. "To pay off Rachel's mortgage," she said. The room shifted. Even my uncle moved in his seat. The judge turned to Rachel. "Ms. Sanders, do you believe your sister should be responsible for your home loan?" Rachel looked up for the first time. "She's not married. She doesn't have children." "I do," she said, like that was a rule everyone knew. "And that creates a financial obligation?" he asked. "We're family," she said softly. The judge raised an eyebrow. "I'm not married either. Should I pay my clerk's rent? Or my bailiff's daycare?" Rachel had no answer. He turned. Back to my parents. "Did you support Catherine financially after she became an adult?" Dad repeated himself. "We were helping Rachel." "So you prioritized one daughter over the other," the judge said, not unkindly but clearly. They didn't respond. For the next hour, he asked simple, firm questions. Why assume Catherine would pay? Why buy a house you knew Rachel couldn't afford? Why tie help to guilt and call the bill love? Their answers bent in on themselves and didn't hold. Outside the courtroom, Grandma hugged me first. "You were steady," she said. "That's more than I can say for the rest of them." I didn't know if I'd won, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like I had ground under my feet. A week later, we went back for the decision. The room felt smaller, or maybe I finally knew how to breathe in it. The judge didn't waste time. After reviewing the evidence, I find the plaintiff's claim without merit, he said. Parents do not get reimbursed for raising their children. In fact, the evidence shows Ms. Catherine Sanders has already provided meaningful financial support to both the plaintiffs and her sister. He paused, then added, quieter but sharp. Frankly, I find your treatment of your daughter brazen and disappointing. Case dismissed. I didn't cheer. I didn't cry. Jennifer smiled. Grandma squeezed my arm. Grandpa whispered, "You're free." I thought that would be the end. It wasn't. A week later, Grandma called. Her voice sounded used up. "Your mother came by?" she said. "She asked us to give her the inheritance early." "For what?" I asked, though I knew. "To pay off Rachel's mortgage," she said. I sat down. "What did you tell her?" "We said we haven't decided who gets what, and that our will is for us to manage," Grandma said. "Did she get angry?" "No," Grandma said. "She cried. She begged us not to cut her." Out. I didn't know what hurt more, her asking or her crying over money, not me. Months went by like calm water. I closed on a small house, nothing fancy, but mine. I painted the kitchen yellow like I always wanted, planted tomatoes, and adopted a serious gray cat who naps next to my laptop every night. Rachel rented out her house and moved back in with our parents. Mom babysits while Rachel works. They found some way to make it function. I didn't call. I didn't email. I kept my peace like it was my first real possession. Almost a year after the trial, I got an email with no subject line. Just this: "We heard you bought a house. Since you now have extra space, we think it would be best if Rachel and the boys moved in with you. It would be much more convenient for them there. Let us know when they can move in. Love, Mom and Dad." I read it twice. I didn't get angry. I replied, "I will not be hosting Rachel or the boys. If you contact me again with demands like this, I will report the harassment to the police. Do not email me again." Then I blocked the address and made tea. These days, my home smells like basil and coffee. The cat, marble gray and solemn, sits on the windowsill every morning and watches birds. He'll never chase. The tomatoes are finally coming in. It's quiet. No raised voices. No tests I didn't agree to take. Grandma and Grandpa visit often. They bring pie or old clippings they think I'll like. Grandpa helps with the gutters. Grandma still tells me to lock the windows, even though I have a security system. They don't mention my parents unless I ask, and I rarely do. One Sunday on the porch, Grandma said, "Your mother still talks about you. She says you abandoned Rachel." I didn't. Answer. "Your Aunt Pat told her to stop bringing it up. Nobody wants to hear it anymore," she added. That made me smile. I'm not naive. I know some of them still think I failed some secret test, that I should have given up what I'd built to carry what wasn't mine. But here's what I know. I sleep well now. Rachel is still living at home, renting out the house to make the payments. The boys are growing. I haven't seen them in over a year. Sometimes I wonder what they've been told. Sometimes I wonder if they'll ever call me on their own. But I don't wait for it. I'm dating someone, Mark, with a kind way of listening, a laugh that makes more room in the air. He doesn't ask about my family yet, and I don't offer. Some stories don't need retelling. Some ties don't have to be repaired. Every now and then, I feel the ache of what might have been. If they had seen me as more than a spare part, if their love had come without a bill attached. But I don't regret saying no. Not anymore. Peace, I've learned, isn't something you're handed. It's something you keep.